You know the drill. I'm going to have to go and just tweak here slightly, add a few things in. So bear with me as I do that. Hopefully everyone's having a fantastic day. But just let me go and do what I need to do here to make this all come together. Guys, make sure you jump in the chat, say hello once you jump on. Hopefully everyone's having a great week so far. Obviously, school holidays for us parents out there. The kids at home making life just a little bit harder. We all love kids to bits, but yeah, anyone knows that the worst time of year when you're working is school holidays because you still have to earn a living. They still want their bits and pieces, and that's the nature of the beast. So, guys, give me a second while all of this loads here. There we go. Post that. While that's loading, I'm just going to quickly do this here like that. Share this. Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. So today's topic is the questions you should be asking as a business owner when it comes to building websites. It's a question. It's something that it's an observation more than a question. It's an observation. This is obviously my personal opinion on the topic. Everyone's got their own ideas on what questions should be asked. I'm just going to talk from my experience. The questions I wish business owners would ask me when they're talking to me, knowing the quality of work that we do here and how we really try and put an emphasis and effort on the quality of work. These are going to be covering off some of the questions you should be asking the company you're working with to make sure that you don't get ripped off, basically. Because that's the ultimate goal of these live streams, is to make sure that people don't end up costing themselves a lot of money and having to do something more than once. So if you didn't get a chance, go and check out the previous yesterday's video where I talk about what should be on your website and like kind of do's and don'ts, and just philosophically about it being your like online presence, and that's really important to have that presence available to you, because your website is a reflection ultimately of the work you do, especially in the 21st century when most of us are digital natives. It's a reflection of what you do. So your website needs to be an accurate reflection. And the amount of websites I come across that are just poorly built, or there's no thought to them, or they're just an afterthought, keeps me gainfully employed, basically, because at some point you will lose a job to it and you'll have to rebuild it. And then there's gentlemen like myself, or there's people like myself out there that are there to pick up the pieces. So how can we stop that from happening? How can we get the website right from the very start, so you only have to rebuild it if trends change or your business fundamentally changes? Well, it all starts at point of sale. It all starts with the questions you ask the business owners you're working with to get the answers. You need to make sure that you're picking the right person to do the job. So I'm going to cover off a few of the questions that I would personally ask the company that I'm working with, or like potentially going to work with, just so that it's all everyone's on the same page. So the first question I would ask a web designer or a company I'm looking for, I'm going to ask them, to walk me through their build process. If you ask that question, you're in a meeting with me, Jimmy, and I'm talking to you, asking me about a website. The first question I'm generally going to ask you is what triggered the build. So like what triggered you to look, and generally it'll be like losing money, or, the business is evolving or something like that. The first question you should ask me is like after we have our initial conversation, is what our process is for building a website. Good designers that take time and effort to build a site will have a very clearly defined process on how they do it, because it's what separates us all. So like, for instance, for us, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit down with you and we're going to basically front load all the questions we can think of that we would possibly ask during the process, because we pride ourselves on on making the process as easy for people as possible. And the way we do that is by not just bugging with micro questions. We just learn as much as we can about the business and fill in the gaps, because we're very content heavy. So from there, we take that, we build out. The first thing we're ever going to do is build out the site structure. So we're going to build out how the website like structurally comes together using a sitemap. And then from there, generally from there, we'll start to outline. We'll get a nod on that. We'll start to outline the content, because the content's the thing that takes the longest time. And then also simultaneously building out 2 pages, the home page and one of the service pages, because most of the website is built up of that. Get approval from that, put it together. Finishing touches, we have a very clearly defined editorial process to make sure that we dot I's and cross T's. And then that's it. But any website, any designer or web agency or website builder or anyone that builds websites should have a very, very clearly defined process for how they build it. Unless it's a very, very specific, unique situation. But even then, the process doesn't deviate much. So that's the first question I'm going to ask. Some of the red flags you'd be looking out for that are people that are having to really think about their process because they haven't really given much thought to it. They're kind of just yeeting it. Another thing to look out for is someone that's very, very, very has a very, very short process, and they don't mention anything about quality control. That would be the biggest red flag for me, is if I'm talking to someone, they're like, oh yeah, we get a template, we put the content in there, we get your approval and move on. There was nothing mentioned there about quality control, which is a big part of doing these things properly. It's actually a critical part of it. We spend a disproportionate amount of our time doing quality control on the sites before we release them, because we don't want our clients to pick up stuff if we've missed it. So like our quality control process is obviously the whole team looks at the site once it's ready to go. But our last line of defense, our goalkeeper isn't me, isn't Pauline. I actually get my stepmom, who used to be an ATO auditor, to go through the website with a fresh set of eyes, never seen the site before in her life, and check everything. And then she picks up 7 pages of stuff that we've all missed, and then we whack it in there. So that would be the other question I would ask, is that, like, if they haven't really elaborated on it, ask them what their quality control processes are for before they launch. See what they actually do. And that will tell a lot about how they treat what the output will be if they haven't really given much thought to quality control and how the website, how to determine whether the website's going to be good or not. That's a bit of a red flag, isn't it? Because if they're not thinking about quality control, there's a good chance that the end result is not going to be what you expect it to be, and to your strength, especially if you have a lot of checks and balances in your business. So that's the second thing I would check. So the first thing I would check is I'd ask them to check to walk me through their process. So we haven't even spoken about price yet, because price is an objective thing. But I'll get them to walk through the process. I would also get them to walk through their quality control process. Any good web design team, a web dev team, will be able to tell you they answer those 2 questions, and that will weed out like 70% of the people. And some of the bad things you'll hear are people that just don't have quality control. They just build a site and expect you to do the quality control. That is the absolute worst case scenario. I would highly, highly recommend that if a web design company is asking you to do the quality control and they haven't done it beforehand, that is not good, because they're putting all the responsibility on you and none on themselves. So, if a company says to me, oh, you do your final checks and then we'll launch it, that's not good. The final checks should be done after the agency does their final checks, and they should have that clearly defined. So that's definitely something. Another thing I would be asking is about content. It's always where these freaking websites get stuck, is no one has conversations about what happens with the content. So they'll say to you, oh, you write the content for the site. That's generally what most designers will do. Now, we charge a premium here at My Online Guide because we produce the content for sites as part of what we do. And the reason we do that is twofold. Firstly, I haven't met a business owner yet that's provided me content that's going to work from an SEO perspective. And we're trying to build these websites to be put to work. It really is if you take away the pictures, where content is generally 80 to 90% of a page. So it's pretty important to have right. So that's somebody to keep an eye out for is if they say for you, if they, and there's nothing wrong with you producing content, but you need to ask them, how does that process work? Do you just tell me that this is going to be the page and then you expect me to write it? Are you going to create outlines for me? What are you going to do to make my life easier when it comes to writing this content? Because if you don't have, as a business owner, if you don't have a background in copywriting, you're literally going to look at a blank sheet with no context and go, what the hell do I write? And the outcome is never going to be good like that. So at the very, very minimum, the company you work for should provide you an outline of what they expect you to write that will get you the best result. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the experience and expertise, and we don't generally come across people that, scoff at the price of the sites we build, because, when you articulate what it actually is supposed to do, then it's an investment. It's not a commodity. Anyway, so content. So that's the third thing I'd be asking them is like, what they do in regards to content, what's their process for content. So with us, for instance, again, we sit down with you, we create the outlines, and we produce the content based on a word count. So we'll work off like 4,000 words, 5,000, 10,000, depending on how much I think we need from an SEO standpoint, to have a fighting shot of the website itself carrying a lot of the weight from an SEO standpoint. So, a lot of people use us because we do write content, and we invest a lot of time, energy, and effort into content, and our team that produces it. So that's the thing I would ask. And I would be, internally, when you're having this conversation, a guy might charge you $1,500 for a website, but you need to seriously think about whether you're going to be able to produce the content to a standard that's required to rank in Google. That is I know a lot of business owners are trying to find ways to cut costs, and, websites are a big investment, but content is not the place to do that, because when it's not right, you might as well just not create a website at all. It's not going to rank. It doesn't matter how much external link building you do or like external SEO stuff you do. If the content on the site's not designed for a good user experience and reads well and is designed for SEO, then you're never going to rank well. It's just that's just how it is, unfortunately. So that's why it's third in the hierarchy, because content is so important. So you need to decide that yourself, whether you're going to have the time. And, full transparency, in our web builds, I would say 40 to 50 hours of our whole web build is content. It takes a lot of energy and time and effort to research and produce content. And, there's different levels of this. That's why I suggest you talk to the company you're working with to ask them their process, because some might expect you to fill in a questionnaire, which gives them the information. We do Zoom or face-to-face meetings, and we get the information we need, and then we research the rest. Again, you pay a premium for that, but some business owners want a bit more of a hands-off approach and just looking at the outputs. So that works for them. But that is a third question I'd be asking. So first question is their process for building a website from start to finish. The second question I'd be asking is what's their quality control and quality assurance. The third thing I'd be asking is content. Who does what? How does the process work? And guys, if you have questions in the meantime, please whack them in the chat. I'll answer them as we go. So that's the third question I'd ask is content, who does what, and walk through the content process. So with us, I'd probably introduce you to Dan. Dan's our editor-in-chief here. He'll walk you through his exact process for how he does it. Obviously I high level it, but if you want to get into the weeds, you're there. And, there is ways, if we have confidence you're going to produce the outputs we need, there is ways to lean out the cost slightly. You may produce the pages that aren't as important from an SEO standpoint, and we do the main keyline pages, depending on how that works from budget wise. So that's the third thing. The fourth question I would ask is what platform do they build on? So obviously, people will say WordPress. That's 40% of the internet. Most web builders, while they build on WordPress or their own system. So the first thing you want to establish is what they're going to build in. So if it's WordPress or, Joomla or, one of the more bespoke ones, find out, if they're going to build in a custom, in their own custom content management system, be aware that if you have to make changes, you're probably going to have to go through them for every change. Whereas we try and educate, so we build in WordPress with Elementor. So the first question you're going to ask is what framework they use, so WordPress. And then the second question you're going to ask is what kind of builder they use. And we're very transparent. We use Elementor and then Astra, and we build everything. We build all our elements from scratch. We don't use templates to create because generally, we build stuff that's a lot more conversion centric. So we don't use a template to create that. We may use templates for inspiration, but it's never going to be just an off the shelf template. The builders, and that's the big thing. There's nothing wrong with templates. They are perfectly fine if they fit the need of the user. So I just want to qualify that, because some people are a bit funny about templates and think they're worthless. You still got to highly modify a template. The template might be for a barber and you're a mechanic. You've still got to fundamentally change it. So anyway, so that's something to consider. But the reason I bring up framework is because a lot of people think of the initial build, and that's all they think about. But you've got to think about the maintenance and the adding of content and the maintenance and what happens long term. If you need to change content on the website, you need to have that conversation before you start with them about what happens there. So with us, we offer every single web client we build websites for, either it's one or two things. We will either offer to run a workshop to teach them how WordPress works and Elementor and how they can update and make minor tweaks to the website, or we offer them a service package where they can just send us what they want changed and we change it. So we have that conversation up front with clients to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I'd hate for someone to build a website, for us to build a website, and they're like, oh, well, I didn't think I was going to be needing you guys after this. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you got to learn how this system works. And that's why I do recommend WordPress for most clients, because it's actually really easy to learn. And we use Elementor, which is a drag and drop interface. It makes it easy for the client to update if they need to once they learn how to drive it. And we're happy to workshop that with clients to get them onto the same page. So that's the fourth thing you need to ask is like, what are you building? What framework is the website being built in? And is it a off-the-shelf solution or is it a custom solution? And then what happens once the website's built in regards to minor changes and stuff like that? That is the fourth question. You don't want to be locked in and handcuffed to someone because they built it custom, and then you're like, well, every minor change, I don't know, it's all hard-coded, and all the minor changes, I have to get someone to change them. It really depends on your circumstances. Like if you have a business that's the content on the website's constantly evolving and changing, like you have specials and stuff that happen once a month, well, then you need to take that into account when you build the website so that you can update it yourself. Or you pay, what you do is you exchange time for money and you go on a service plan and then you do the updates. And we have probably a 50-50 mix of clients that are on service plans where they just send us the information they need. We add it in because it is faster for us to do. And then we have half where we've either taught them or we just point them in the right direction about how to learn it. And then we just answer ad hoc questions they have about WordPress and how to do specific stuff. That's the other question. The next question that you need to ask, and then there's a lot, and I really should put this on paper, but if anyone wants any further follow-up information on this, just get in touch with me. But the next thing you need to consider when building a website is domain name and hosting. Who owns that stuff? Who sets that up? What happens after the build happens? So what happens to all that stuff? So you need to find out what their hosting is, what their solution is for that, what that's going to cost you yearly and long term. And then you need to find out with the domain name, if they're going to register your domain name, what is their process for passing control back to you of all this stuff if you don't want to use them? What's their process for if you don't want to use them, you want to use someone else, or you have go to a marketer and they need access to this stuff? What is their process for this stuff? A professional agency that does this for a living and does it to a high standard will have processes in place for this. We have processes for all this. Like we always get the client to register their own domain name, so we don't have the hassle of them trying to say we stole it. So we have like documentation that walks the client through how to register the domain name. Hosting, we run through the hosting. If someone wants to move that, we have processes for packaging up the whole website and just moving it if they want to move. So ask those questions of the company you potentially want to work for, or the freelancer. Ask that question as well. The next question you want to ask is what happens when the website's ready to launch? what is their migration process? Get them to walk through their migration process with you. And now the beautiful thing about this is that you don't necessarily need to understand all this, but I would be recording the conversation. I'd be sitting there with my phone recording the conversation, then going to a Jimmy of the world or someone you trust and going, this is what they said to me. Does any of this make sense? Or do your own diligence. If you're going to spend 7, 8, 10,000, 20,000 on a website, do your own freaking diligence on it. Record the conversation you're having. If some client walked into my office and said, oh, look, Jimmy, I'm just recording this so I can do some research. Bang, I'd be happy to do it. I just would iterate that if it's something that is commercially in secret, I will just make a note for you and pass it to you. But not a single client has done that, and that would be refreshing if a client did that, because I like to justify my costs in the world, and everything we do has value. And if a client's willing to do the research about the value of us migrating and how we migrate, a client that knows the SEO or websites will see huge value in that. And it's why other agencies use us for the websites. But a client that maybe doesn't know that, they're just going to take it at face value. And so when they're talking to an agency and they're like, oh yeah, our migration, we just point the domain name to the new site and have at it. Terrible. They haven't talked about what's going to happen to your emails. They haven't talked about downtime. They haven't talked, a good company will speak to you about when's the best time to migrate as well, and actually go, we're going to migrate on a Saturday or a Friday or whatever, Tuesday morning, because it's the quietest time in the business. So it's going to have the least disruptions. Haven't talked about 301 redirects for SEO. Haven't talked about any of that stuff. The next question you need to ask them is like, what do they do from an SEO standpoint? Because everyone talks about making a website SEO ready, right? That's such a subjective thing. They need to lay out what they're actually going to do as part of that. Are they going to optimize the titles and meta descriptions? Are they going to optimize the H tags? How far down the rabbit hole do they go? So all the websites we build, we optimize for SEO. Now we have an SEO background, obviously. So we will change all the metas and titles. We'll do all the on-page H tags. We'll also speed up the site once it's live, because it's generally the people that are building websites with us are doing SEO after the fact as well. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. But yeah, just keep that in the back of your mind. What are they actually doing from an SEO standpoint? And like I said, you're recording all this, so you're getting all this documented and down. So there's another question you need to ask. Now, I think this is personally par for the course, but not every designer does it, is like talk about mobile responsiveness and the website working on mobile, and what kind of guarantee and what is their process for working out whether the website works on mobile. Now for us, what we do is we build basically a whole second site on mobile, and then just set our points so that we know it's going to load properly on mobile. And basically we do a sweep of the website. So when we're on our QA process, we do a complete sweep of the website from a desktop version, and then we actually get physical mobile phones and do a full sweep of the website on a mobile version to make sure that elements respond properly. G'day, Will. This could be one worth watching back if you get a chance, because I've covered off in fair detail some of the things you should be looking for when it comes to websites. So mobile responsiveness, what happens there? What's their QA process to make sure things work on mobile? Little things like that. If you asked all those questions, you would weed out 95% of the shitty web designers out there, and you would start to find the people that you can with confidence go, okay, well, this guy's going to charge me $8,000, $10,000, whatever. The website he builds is going to be done to the highest standard, and it's not something we're going to have to do immediately in the future if we have to do SEO, things like that. You start to get more confidence in the person that's building the website. And I think a lot of the reason people dissociate or commoditize websites is because if they've had previous experience with it, they know for a fact that if they go with the wrong person, they're going to have to do a heap of work anyway. So they discount that in the costs of the site build. Whereas when people work with us, there's very, very little the client's going to have to do. So what they're doing is exchanging money for time. But also they're getting a lot of value for that money. And it's sort of like a do it once, do it properly sort of situation. So what you're trying to determine with all your line of questioning is whether you're going to have to go back if it's not to your standard, and what happens in that situation. And we just have a lot of processes to make sure we hit the mark with the client the first time, so we don't have to wheel back and do things again. And like I said, we build 30 to 40 websites a year, and we have very few rebuilds. I think we have one a year maybe, where the client's like, it's just not the design we think. It's not just how it looks, because we try and fill in the gaps for clients. That's the other question you need to be asking, is like, how much input is going to be required from you as the owner to get this website done? You kind of don't want this is more a personal request as a designer. Please don't be the roadblock to the website being built. So if the web designer is asking you for photos, don't take 6 weeks to get photos to the designer. Or if you guys are going to write the content, don't take 10 weeks to write it, because it slows down the process. And we have checks and balances in place here that if you don't provide the content, what we need, the collateral we need and we've agreed upon, we're not going to start the build until we get that. And that just blows the timeframes out. But like, we're honest about that. I want the owners that we're building these websites for, because we do charge a lot for them, to be as committed to it as we are, not just an afterthought. That's the other question you want to ask. You want to be honest about how much time you can commit to a website, and then you need to talk to the web designer to find out how much time they're going to actually need from you and your team to get this thing off the ground. So that's another question I would definitely ask. It's just like, what is the time commitment you're going to need from us to get this website up? And everyone will have different processes that will do that. So we'll ask, do you find it's easy to actually build a website once you have the skills, but content creation is hard? Yeah. Like, building a website. Okay, so there's different tiers of web designer, right? So you have the Fiverr, that kind of level, $200, $500 website. Just get a template, make it kind of slightly modify it so it fits. That's the first tier. The second tier is where someone's taking a template, modifying it, making it, designing it to fit your color scheme and stuff like that. That's like the $1,500 to $2,000 website. 2 to 4 is someone that's doing that a little bit more custom, where they're building with a builder. 4 to 8 is you start to talk to people that take into account conversion and user experience and SEO. 8 plus, you start to talk to people that are adding value with content and things like that as well. Yeah, it's not you got to remember that. And I know I'm going to cop flack from other people about this in the industry, but a lot of what we learn about doing it and building the actual website itself comes from YouTube, and places like that. If I don't know how to do something, I YouTube it, and then what you're paying for a lot of the time is the application of those elements. You can have a really ugly looking website that functions really well. But you can't determine that if you don't have experience and you don't have you don't do research and have knowledge on what converts. So a lot of times, you're right, Will. If you learn how to build websites, it's the actual nuts and bolts of building a website isn't that hard. What is hard is to work out how all the elements come together, the color scheme, and there's very, very few clients, and we've offered this as a service and done it for a few people, where we say we'll set up the website itself, like the hosting, the WordPress instance, make it so it all connects, but you'll have a blank slate. And of those 3 people we've done it for, none of them have finished a website, because it's not easy. What people don't realize is it's not easy to build stuff from scratch. It's easy to take a template, but like, even with a template, it's never exactly how you want it to do. And once you go down the rabbit hole, it's really hard to come back out. It's easy to build a website. It's hard to make it look good, and it's hard to do all the bits that make it, a top tier website. That is what's difficult to do of building websites. And then content creation is a whole nother beastie. Content creation is, like, I would argue, one of the hardest bits of marketing in general is producing content, but like, especially when it comes to websites, because you got to balance what Google needs versus what people will convert. What will convert for people. So, it's this fine line between the two. But yeah, that's a great question, Will. And I wish more people would ask that, because I could, a good designer will have an explanation for how they get to their pricing. So we base our pricing off 120 to 150 hours of work. That's how long it takes us to build a website. And that's including all the QA and everything. So we price accordingly. We sometimes discount it slightly, our hourly rate, but that's we work off that 120 to 150 hours, and then it's up to us to become more efficient in the way we build. And that's why we have so many processes in place, because that used to be 180, and we've just slowly been grinding that down to 150, 120, depending on the client. That's why I'm confident in what we charge, because it's based off the hours we work, not like, we're not just taking a $40 template and then charging you $3,000 for it. It's only taking us 5 hours of work. It's like we put a lot of emphasis on doing this stuff right, and that's where the cost comes from. So that's something to consider as well. But yeah, I think if you were to ask the questions I just covered off before, and please rewatch this, I think there's a lot of value in this, what we've done today. You will weed out like 99% of people. And guys, if any of you guys record your conversation and then send it to me at no cost to you, I will look over that with a objective eye and go, this is what he's saying. This is how to interpret it. This is what it means. And I'm not going to sit here and try and sell you on me building your website. We're always here. We should be the first person you ask anyway, to be fair. But if you do shop around and like looking for someone, I'll do that. I'll probably charge you an hour of my time, but I will give you straight dope. I will consult and I will tell you whether I will disambiguate the language that they're using and tell you what it actually means. So that's an offer to anyone that's watching today or will watch this. Come and talk to me. I shoot pretty straight. I'm not going to here to use this as a funnel to sell you something. It's more just like, I'm very, very sincere about seeing less business owners get ripped off in marketing. And if I have to commit time and effort and energy to make that happen, that's why I've been coming on and doing a live stream every day, because I really think that this part of it is where a lot of businesses get bamboozled. And the final thing I want to finish on is, all because it's more expensive doesn't mean it's better. There is companies out there that charge $25,000, $30,000 for a website that could realistically be built by someone that's more efficient with lower overheads for $5, $10, $7 grand. And this is why I wouldn't write off the $4,000 web builder, because his margins may be a lot less and he has a lower hourly rate. It's just depending on the person, those questions you ask. What you probably won't get for that is processes and stuff like that, but that's why you ask the questions, to drill down and find that person that's the best fit for you. Some of the ways you can bring the cost of a website down is by strapping on your boots and doing a bit of work yourself. I won't ever discount what it costs us to build a website, because I know what it costs us. But what I will do is work with you to go, well, okay, well, shit, you've got you've got a daughter that's super keen to learn how to build websites. Well, why don't we build out a couple of pages, and then she can build out some of that reduces the cost for you, and then we can just tidy it up. Or you'll want to write the content, or your wife loves writing. Why don't we do just do a sort of a hybrid where you have a consultation? We do the outlines of the website, and then she writes what she feels comfortable writing, and then she can lean on us for consultation and to learn. I believe in education. I really do. And it's why I do these videos, because, I have no qualms teaching people what I do, because if there's more good people building good stuff in the world, then there's less chance of businesses getting ripped off. This is in value. Loving these videos. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience so freely. Honestly, I don't even look at this as a chore. I get excited doing this stuff because, I just put, this is the fundamental reason I do this. And I'm almost tearing up thinking about this, to be fair. I think a lot of what the problem is in the marketing space is that there's so many marketers that just don't give a shit whether the business succeeds or not. And they don't appreciate that it's someone's livelihood on the line. So like, when we charge someone $50,000, $70,000, $30,000, $40,000, I understand that that's going to have a tangible effect on their life, positively or negatively. And it frustrates me when I hear like people getting ripped off for 30 grand, because the people that are ripping off don't realize that there's sacrifices in a small business for that to happen. Like if I was to give someone $30,000 of my net wealth, that would significantly reduce my net wealth. And that might mean the difference between our kids going to a private school or a public school, or them going vocational programs or doing things that I never got to do as a kid. And I just feel like sometimes marketers don't give a shit about that. Honestly, they see it as a gold rush to generate as much income as possible for themselves, without any regard to how that affects other businesses or other human beings. And I think that's why I'm so, when I say passionate, I think passion's a thinly veiled excuse for values, right? Why my values align so much with these videos is because I would hate to be the person that's responsible for a business going bankrupt. And, sometimes that's out of your people's control. Like that's, like COVID, for instance, like, I've personally have a business that we've been working with that has gone bankrupt because of COVID. I can put my hand on my heart and say I did everything I possibly could, including helping them out at no cost for 3-4 months, with me having a full expectation I probably wasn't going to get the money back. But I can put my hand on my heart, and we're still friends. I can honestly say that we did everything we possibly could to help him. We were charging a fair price for what we do. And I can honestly walk down the street and not have to duck my head when I see him, because everyone I hire, the whole team, everyone just gives a shit about what they do. And this shouldn't be the industry where people don't give a shit what they do, because it has a tangible effect on people's livelihoods. There's industries where you can, if you're stacking shelves at Bunnings, you can probably care a little bit less about what you do. I still would have a lot of personal pride in it being done properly, but some people, have that, and more power to you. But marketing isn't the place to cut corners, because, like I said, you pay me $30,000. I'm the custodian of that money. I need to get you. It's like investing in anything else. Like if you give a financial plan of $30,000, you expect that to be turned into 31 or 35 or whatever that return is. It's like marketing is the same thing. If you're going to invest the time, energy, and effort to spend $40,000 on a marketing campaign, you expect that to be turned into 41, 42, 45. You don't expect it to go from 40,000 to zero. And if you're working with you might as well go to a roulette table and flip a coin, put it on red. On it, you'll probably get a better return than half of these marketing agencies out there. So that's why I do these videos. And that's why I'll continue to do them while I have the facilities to be able to do it. Because the more I can get that message out there to businesses, that not to be bamboozled, do your research, have a cursory knowledge of the space, you will uncover the people that do good work, and they will get you a return. And then you also disregard all the people that do shit work, that are just there to try and sit on a beach and do 4 hours a week of work. So, I'm going to end on that. Obviously, I get quite emotional when I talk about that, because it's just, I genuinely believe that to be right. And if I think a client isn't getting results, I sit there sometimes and lose sleep over it, because it's like, am I doing enough? And, I'm just fortunate that a lot of times we are doing everything we possibly can, and I have conviction in that. And so when a client is in that situation, I can be like, dude, there's nothing else I can do here. And then if they want to go to someone else and get a second or third opinion, I know that person's going to come in and go, look, I may do it. Well, if they've got integrity, they'll probably go, this is the thing, right? If someone comes to me and goes, oh, Jimmy, and this has happened a few times, and I've given up lots of money over this, because it's just, I don't believe in making enemies in the space. I believe in just leading by example, leading by character. And we've had it where mates of mine have gone, oh, Jimmy, what do you think of this guy and what he's doing in our Google ads or SEO or whatever? And I've been there and gone, look, dude, I may do it slightly differently, but he's doing a good job. He's doing a perfectly fine job. There's nothing here I would say is standing out to me going, no, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's just doing it different to how I would. But you'll still get it will still tip the needle. And I hope in return, if someone gets my stuff peer reviewed, the clients, the people they're working with go, oh, Jimmy, what he's doing here it's all top tier, everything he's doing here is the way you do SEO or the way you build websites. And then subjectivity comes into it. It's like, oh, maybe I would have done that slightly differently or whatever, but that's irrelevant. Everyone has their personal touch. We're not robots. But from a nuts and bolts standpoint, I would like to think that no client is going to get my stuff peer reviewed, and the person that peer reviews them is going to go, "Oh, Jimmy's just pulling the piss here," and I have a lot of conviction because we put a lot of effort into making sure that that happens. And when you have that conviction, it rubs off on your clients. It rubs off on everything they do. If they're confident that they can make decisions from the marketing you're doing, then they're going to make better decisions. It just get better outcomes overall. So, guys, thank you for your kind words today. It's nice to see that the hours and hours I'm spending on here is reaching people, and people are getting value out of it. And guys, if you ever want to talk shop, I don't commoditize communication. If one of you wants to chat to me for an hour, I'll make time. I just believe that it's a very important cause, initiative trying to improve this industry. If I have to be the lead in that, that's what I'm going to do. But guys, thanks once again. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about tomorrow. It'll be about websites. But it might be, I haven't picked a topic yet. I've got to do some research. Maybe we'll look at examples of good and bad websites. I think that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Is we'll look at some examples of good and bad websites, and just give some context. And then on Friday, I'm going to reach out to a few people I know, and I'm going to talk to them and try and get them on for a Frothy Friday chat with us. So that'll be good. But once again, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this as always, and tune in tomorrow.